again, welcome back to Studio Break Africa. Reaching you from Studio Saying the City and Musical. Okay, this morning we have Entrepreneur in the house as we talk about the taxation policy and its implementation. I mean, this is one of the things the president actually tends to actually set the ball rolling on ever since he came into power. And like I said, we have Entrepreneur in the house, person of Akinola, Idowu. Welcome once again on Daybreak Africa.
Nice to have you on the show.
Thanks for inviting me.
It's more like it's going to be a continuation of our previous
time.
Sure. Now, just this morning, I noticed that Nigeria's debt reached $108.3 billion, which represents an increase of 123%. Now, with this crisis, basically, that I begin to perceive the need for this fiscal policy. But do you consider that fiscal policy actually the pathway, or the gateway at which we tend to come out of these debts we tend to actually engulf ourselves in?
Well, that's a capital no. There are several ways to which we can actually attack the market. Now, for instance, we all know that Nigeria is not a producing country. And the only way to drive this economy is to shift Nigeria to a production company, not consuming. We consume virtually everything we consume are imported. I mean, more than 80%. You understand? So it's going to be a long journey to shift Nigeria away from this debt profile. But the basic things we need to do, like the president said, that day one they will set the ball rolling when they hit the ground. So up till now, they've not set the ball rolling. Policies that are meant to shift this country to production country, these are the expectations of this particular administration. How do you create wealth within? Because when you can create wealth within, then from within you can now export. Currently, I think there is a statistics that says that we should be fully prepared for food scarcity next year. There'll be so much hunger next year. Why? We have less than 20% of our farmers producing. So if we can't feed, how are we going to export?
Okay, so speaking on production, I mean, what are those, aside the oil revenue, what are other things, viable things Nigeria can actually produce that we can actually export and then generate revenue? Because looking within, when it comes to production, sometimes it feels more like we don't believe in our own product. And even when people tend to produce things, they use foreign brands so it can sell. So me asking now, what are those things we can actually produce that are viable and can be sent out to other places, and it will be accepted?
Before independence, in 1950s/1960s, we gained independence in 1960. So pre-independence/independence, we have regional government. Every region, the western region, the eastern region, they are producing. Now, western region was really known for cocoa export. In fact, Cocoa House in Ibadan was built with the money and many other western projects, including the first TV station in Africa, converted to NTA now. Now, it's not as if we've not tried this before. We understand the fact that to drive this economy, there are basic things we need to put in place. Buhari administration came on board and said they want to stop importation of many things. Stop importation of rice, of some frozen foods. Chicken and turkey can actually be grown in Nigeria. We can as well export. Of recent, I saw a product in UK, mango, produced from Brazil, shipped down to UK, sold in UK supermarkets. I was like, wow, that we have enough wastage here in Nigeria. I mean, enough wastage. Why? A lot of times due to lack of road from the farm settlement down to the urban settlements, or down to the actual market centers. Lack of road, very bad roads, very terrible roads. Now, if you consider many things that we are battling with, you see that our major problem still lands on leadership. The will to drive the economy. If, for example, the House, let's just say the House, both the representative and the Senate, They are planning of buying car worth 160 million per person, yet they want to import them. You know, they are all imported. Toyota imported grades, Japanese cars. We have the brands like Innosin, like Nord, like GAC down there in Lagos. So we have Innosin in Anambra. We have Nord also in Lagos. In Lasu, for example, it's a young guy producing good, great cards in Nigeria. You can't patronize them. So if our leaders cannot prioritize made in Nigerian goods, how much more the followers? So you see that the challenge is actually from leadership. So to produce is not that hard. For example, get a database of the farmer. Don't deal with state government directly. Deal with local governments. Get access through to the farmers, because all farmers are local based. None of them is from the state. They are local based. Like farmers in it's actually after trying to identify them by state that you now say, okay, you are from what state? But all farmers are basically local based. Get the direct database of the farmers in local base, because you see, when we talk about generating revenue, it's not that hard to generate revenue, but the challenge is those who intend to pay the taxes will feel more like, what if I pay? They will still squander it. So they tend not to pay. Number one. Number two, we have a problem around how do we know who we are to tax? We don't have the database, or we don't have the quantitative and qualitative database. So there are a lot of things that the leadership can actually put in place. You know, Nigeria yam, for example. Nigeria yam is in fact, it's one of the best yam UK recommends. I don't know how, but I realize that Nigeria yam is more quality than other yams. So there is a little problem around exporting of yam in Nigeria. Federal government policies. So now I've met, at least I've seen about 2 group of people, their team, who will go to Ghana, plant Nigeria yam, export it from Ghana. Because to export a ton, you just saw the reports now from Akinola, African Development Bank. He said to export a ton in Nigeria is far greater, in fact, more than almost 20% to export a ton of container in Nigeria compared to that of Ghana. So they will go to Ghana, export Nigerian yam, brand it as Nigerian yam, but Ghana, product of Ghana, then export it to UK and sell, and they are making good money. Now they are Nigerians doing that in Ghana. How much more their hometown? So you can see that we still have policies around productions that will actually, it's like we are in a bottleneck. We want to do, but we can't do.
When it comes to agriculture, I really remember the last administration tends to focus more, I mean, most of the energy into agriculture. I don't say it was working fertility exactly, but we know it wasn't as successful as as expected, actually. So I tend to wonder, is it exactly the issue of exporting, or we have a challenge with our farmers?
The last administration has a very low level of transparency. I'm sorry to use that statement, but that's exactly how it should be painted. Remember the rice pyramid that was done in Abuja? Like, Nigeria is now the largest producing country of rice in Africa, thereabout, and they now have to show it by importing and gathering rice pyramid, just to show that, oh, this is all we can produce. Funny enough, a bag of rice is still around 30-something thousand naira. Before you came on board, how much was a bag of rice? Around 8,000 to 10,000 per bag, imported, not even Nigeria, because nobody was really going for Nigeria. So if you say you want to close your border and you don't want foreign rice to come in, that shows that there must be a policy that will allow that rice to flow. Do you know how much ton Benue produce in rice? About 3.7 tons thereabout. That can actually, Nigeria consumes about 7-point-something tons per year. So imagine if Benue is producing half of what Nigeria produces, but yes, we have so high level of insecurity in Benue. So you see, it's more like a government that brings up a charade of, this is what we intend to do, this is how we're going to do it, and everything is well documented, but when it comes to implementation, there was no transparency. Many farmers could not access the kind of loan that will actually help them. Many who were able to access the loan could not even go to the farm. I felt to read the story of some farmers who were paying bandits in millions just to access their farm in Middle Belt and some part of the north.
I know for a fact we have an issue of herders and farmers crisis in the Middle Belt, but I don't know the fact of them being paid.
They were paid. Just take your tab and Google it. They were paid. Farmers cried that we have to pay up to, some are even paying up to 300 million. Group of farmers. So just say, please don't destroy our farm, help us secure this place. Bandits. So you see why that investment is lucrative. Why bandits and herdsmen can actually leave this business. It's quite lucrative for them because government is not doing enough to even secure the interest of the farmers. So imagine if they were to pay the 300 million to Nigerian government as tax revenue. Just imagine.
Okay, so I mean, still on this issue of tax revenue, tax reforms, I think we still have problem with implementation and monitoring, because it is one thing to actually come up with policies and reform policies due to change in economy and all of that and circumstances of the nation, but we tend to, I mean, still have problem with implementation and monitoring and seeing that these things are actually done. Will we say that our present government, because I mean they're all human beings too, of course, do we say that it's just because they are just of words, or they don't just have probably the data in place to actually get this thing done, or they don't just want to do it? I mean, a lot of thoughts, a lot of questions in mind. Is it that they don't just want to implement this thing, or there is a bigger factor behind these whole implementation issues?
So policy comes from planning to execution or implementation. Monitoring, evaluation, these are the process of every policy. They've planned policies, but how do they implement the policies? You cannot get a desired result when you have non-state actors performing in these sectors. We have high level of non-state actors who are performing more of personal interest than what they were employed for. For example, have you ever noticed that for an average bike man who rides a bike commercially on our Nigerian roads pay up to 3 different taxes per day? They could be same, but 3 different intervals: morning, afternoon, evening.
Sure.
You observe?
Yes.
Now who are the ones collecting it? They're not paying to the government. They just pay, and they pay. I can tell you that they pay. Let's take Lagos for example. Do you know how much those downfall diver pays to non-state actors? And they actually pay.
Yeah.
So can we say that the old generated revenue for the day goes into the purse of the government? No. Only a few percentage. So it's not as if they're not paying tax. They are paying, but it's not getting to where it should get to.
Now, these non-state actors, sorry to cut you there, these non-state actors, because I remember one of the times I was about boarding a bus and there were this set of persons who came in to collect some money and they claimed to be government officials, all right? Though they didn't dress like, we know that, okay, people call them Agbero, of course. So they collected money from a lot of bus drivers, a lot of tricycle riders and all of that. Now, I want to ask, are these people sent by the government? And if they are sent, when we talk about returns, are they judicious?
So there's a system that has been drafted by the so-called government,
okay,
that allows their cronies to be in charge of tax revenues. Now, in turn, they will now employ some set of people who work as freelancer that will come and say, okay, I will mount this area, get tax from this set of people, including those who are working in the market. You know, they pay tax too.
Yes.
So, if you now look keenly into this operation, you will realize that majority of the tax that are being paid are not actually getting to the government purse, because there is no accountability, there is no credibility. Abia state government did a thing that was quite fascinating when Alex Otti came on board. He gave them large room to select which particular offer they will prefer. If you want to be paying your tax per day, this is how much you will pay. If you want to be paying your tax per week, this is how much you will pay. If you want to be paying your tax per month, now there were reduction at every stages. This is how much you'll be paying. But per month, you pay to this particular account, get your sticker, then you can write throughout the whole month.
Yeah.
Is that not effective? It's quite effective. So there are effective ways to which we can get out whatever we need to get from the community. I mean, more effective way, more digitalized way. But because we need to reward some cronies, so we'll throw it out. Take some, don't worry, give us some. It goes on everywhere in Nigeria. I mean, virtually everywhere. The only even for personal income tax, those who are in charge of personal income tax will still come and negotiate with you. It's not as if they were able to audit your account to now know how much your gains were at the end of the year, to say, okay, this is how much you will pay. It's about 21%, depending on the category, from 15 down to 21%. If you are earning above 1.6 million annually, you pay around 21% for personal income tax. If you are earning less than 300,000, you pay around 15, I think around 10 to 15% thereabout. So it depends on the category. But you know, the funniest thing is that they still don't audit you to know exactly how much you've made as your personal income tax for the year and say, okay, this is the percentage to which you pay. They only come, write a figure, and ask you to negotiate. Do you understand? And that goes on virtually everywhere for people who are even paying tax. So I'm not even talking about regions that don't even you can't even go to them and say, come and pay me tax. I won't mention some states in the north that you can't go there and say, come and pay tax. Do you understand? But for, let's just say, a little exposed civilized areas in Nigeria who pay tax still don't pay the way they should pay. Company income tax is not that hard. There are stages. If you earn about 20 million annually, you pay around between 20, okay, above 100 million, you pay about 30% annually for your income tax. That's if you earn above 100 million. If you earn between 25 down to 100 million, you pay 20%. Now, if you earn between 0 to 25 million, you pay 0%. Now, can you tell me currently in Nigeria how many SMEs who are running a company-based organizations but using SME, like just business name, hands up to 25 million annually? So that's why we have a large database of people who are not even paying tax at all. Yet, you are not supposed to pay if you don't hand up to 25 million. But some people will still come and say, pay us tax, sure. Get the cut and not remit it because they know under law you are not supposed to pay. So you see that the effect of non-state actors is more like the government is not even ready. There are digital ways of doing things that makes it accessible and easier. Number one thing is get a database of people who are to pay tax. There are ways to which you can get your data. You can't force them to come and register. Just like I said the other time, if you have a grant and you say for business owner between tailors, just mention them, pack them, and say, okay, I'm getting this route directly to the local government. Just register online. Your name, your business name, your address, everything. By that, you already configured your database. You have a database for you, at least you have more than 80%. Because virtually everybody will be interested in the grant. You understand? You have a database. So if you supply the seed, fertilizer, the next phase is to wait for the harvest.
Yeah.
So if you can actually give them grants, some don't even need more than 300,000 in their business. They'll be fine. I mean, some. So just imagine the last trip the president took his convoy down to Ogar and they spent about $500,000. That's half $1 billion just for accommodation. And now imagine if that money can be transformed in, I'm just saying, I'm citing instances. So imagine if that money can actually get down to grassroots. Imagine people who don't need more than 1 million, people who don't need more than 10 million. Just imagine their category. People People don't even have 500,000. Imagine the woman selling tomato who just wants to expand her business and it's just 500k.
The last time we were here, we spoke about development, being one of the forerunners when it comes to economy, particularly in Nigeria. And the thing is, when it comes to, we have a challenge of debt servicing. And I think debt servicing tends to actually dwarf our level of investment in the country.
But we still, sorry to cut you off, but we still borrow to squander.
That brings me to my
so
question.
160 million per representative, or let's say per legislature for vehicle. Where are we going to get the money?
I think we're going to review that expenditure, but for now, I tend to wonder how best do you think we could manage the economy since we have just enough, going on debt servicing, just before we start talking about investments, something that should actually keep us going in the short run.
Number one, let us cut every unnecessary spending. This is the first time in the history of Nigeria that the president will appoint up to 48 ministers.
I guess it's more for effectiveness.
And which effectiveness? We have more reputation. Minister for Petroleum, Minister for State Petroleum, Minister for FCT, Minister for State. Just imagine many reputations. Just because you want to reward people. That's just it. Let's stop capping. That's just it. You have how many SA? Special assistants, special advisors on. You have many. I mean the largest. Are they working for free? The minister will still have aides, be paying their aides. So you see, it's not as if we want to resolve the problem of this country. Otherwise, let me take an analysis, or let's just use an analogy. Let's say currently now you don't have more than $1 million in your account, and there is no other source, and that $1 million can only take you for 2 years. By your understanding, you know what to buy and what not to buy.
Yeah.
Nobody can compel you to buy a thing, because you already know your purse. It's not as if you are cutting your clothes according to your size. No, you are cutting your clothes according to your clothes.
Okay.
You understand?
Yeah.
Your size is big, yes, but this clothes cannot take your size. So what do? You cut it and make a jacket, right?
Okay.
So the government is not really interested in cutting down the cost of government, which is our problem. How on earth? I just saw the news 3 days ago. I was like, for real? How on earth would you want to go for a 6 days program in Switzerland and you'll be budgeting $900,000? I mean, now, and yet the debt rate keeps going up. We are borrowing to spend, not spend on reasonable things. Now, when the government came on board and said, raise up, there'll be hardship. Without honesty, what I was expecting is, yes, brace up, guys, there'll be hardship. For example, let's see the analysis of a farmer who spent everything he has on clearing a land, buying the seeds, planting the seeds, and buying enough fertilizer, and practically has nothing else to spend. What's farmer going to do? Maintain the productivity level, closely monitor the productivity level. In fact, if it's for him to be sleeping on the farm, he will sleep on the farm to make sure that this is productive, because this is all my investment and I cannot allow it to go down the drain. Now at the end of the planting season, he can now come out and say, yes, my family were able to brace up, people around were able to brace up, because we have practically had nothing to spend, but now we are getting the fruit. So that's what I'm expecting from the government. Brace up, yes, fine. By now, senators are complaining of bad roads. Am I going to be the one to fix the road? You are empowered to fix the road, not me. So 160 million times 300 and something. Do you know how much road it will fix? So you can see that we have so very high level of unseriousness in the government. Sorry to use that statement. That shows that they are not really going to be productive. Because it's one thing to say a thing, it's another thing to lead by example. I hope you understand the point.
So in the short run, there is nothing we can do about it in the short run.
Practically, I don't know what we can do about it. Because just imagine how many business owners who has practically shut down currently in Nigeria. Of fact, I know of some of my friends who practically had to say, okay, at this social, let me just shut down, sell everything, pack everything, and start afresh anywhere in the world. I don't mind. I mean people who are earning like 2 million naira per month, who just felt like Nigeria doesn't worth it.
Okay.
Now
So
you made you were trying to actually buttress the point as to our level of expenditure. Now is our challenge basically revenue or expenditure?
Our challenge is not revenue. Nigeria has no revenue problem, though we can expand it. There are rooms for expansion. South Africa got about $94 billion worth of income tax just 2022. I mean $94 billion, of which personal income tax took about 35.7% out of it, while company tax took about 20.6%. So just imagine if you know what they call personal income tax, individual paying tax. So what's the 35.7% of $94 billion? That's to tell you that people who are willing to pay, that no, I'm making it, let me pay returns. Do we have people who are proud to do that in Nigeria? Can anybody come out and say, yes, I'm making it, I want to pay returns? So now, it's not as if we have revenue problem. We don't. We do actually, but not to the scale of the expenditure problem we have. We have oil in Niger Delta, generating so much more. Though we even have non-state actors performing there too, because there are non-state actors performing virtually everywhere. So when we say fight corruption, what we are saying is fight the non-state actors, nothing else. Because the non-state actors are actually, you know one thing I wish we realize is that if only the government can be transparent for us to see the in process of how things are being done in their government, we understand much more about the wastage we have in this government. Imagine if an average American legislator can't say the government bought me this car, but legislator in Nigeria can say, yes, government bought me 160 million, of which they will still resell it to themselves. After a while, they will just stamp it on it and say, okay, they've been buying vehicles for years. Where are the other vehicles? And we have returning senators in those houses. We have returning rep members in those houses. Where were the vehicles they bought for them initially? Do you know where I'm heading to? Yeah. So when we talk about revenue problem, it's not really like we have revenue. Imagine the excesses we spend on maintaining just government, not maintaining process of generating revenue. Just the government. We want to maintain the large cabinets, maintain the judiciary, maintain the legislative, maintain the executives, and we're spending so much billions just maintaining those we elected in public office, or let's say political office. I mean maintaining them. So we who voted them, practically nobody is maintaining us.
Exactly.
The government is not maintaining my business. The government is not maintaining my family. The government is not maintaining my education. The government is not maintaining my health, but I'm maintaining them. So do you now understand why I said we have a very large vacuum of excesses, like expenditure excesses that we really need to cut down to. So if Nigeria, for example, okay, of recent I felt they said that we've increased from 1.2 metric ton, what do we use for oil? That we've increased to about 1.7. I just saw the news, a flash news, like I was like, oh, during Buhari it went down to about 900, but now it's back up. So actually that we're still generating enough. And currently now, a barrel of oil sells for as high as, I think, close to 100, between 80 something to $100 area, but depending on the season. So that shows that we still have enough revenue being generated from those sectors. Somewhere there in Zamfara, somewhere there in Borno, we have non-state actors exploiting our natural resources. They export gold without government getting a share. They export uranium without government getting a share. They export lithium. Do you know how much lithium costs in the world? Because the next phase of power is lithium. Your phone uses lithium as a battery pack. Many solar installations now uses lithium as a battery pack. So just imagine how much lithium costs in the real sense of it. Now, we have those non-state actors performing excellently well, using bandits to shield their what's it called, their sites. All the name of they want to make. So we have so much non-state actors performing virtually everywhere, though they are not state actors, but they are cronyms to people in power. So it's like some selected set of people said, okay, let us share Nigeria. Let's share the resources of Nigeria. That's how funny. Okay, who are the ones benefiting from oil subsidy? Have you ever thought about it? Am I benefiting from oil subsidy? Are you benefiting from oil subsidy?
Because in the long run, we should.
How?
Somehow in the long run, we should. I mean, the whole point is actually try to curtail, like I said, expenditure and all that.
Do you know the level of fraud that the administration before Buhari came on board and said, this is what we are experiencing, let us stop oil subsidy? We are just paying some set of people who say, I brought in so liters of oil, so I'm supposed to get this amount on it as subsidy. Because government is subsidizing the rate to which you import. Yet, it was not oil, it was just water. You know, a lot of atrocities that have been committed that if truly the government was serious enough, I mean, earth should be rolling by now. No, that's the point. So, our level of development is tied down to our level of revenue generated. Yes, accepted. But somewhere there, the little revenue we have that could do a long, just imagine if you could assemble a team of, you know, it's been done in China. They just assemble a set of people, give them funds, give them the line to go. Many of them would travel out of the country, get the knowledge, come back, the government will invest again, they will start production. That's why China is taking over America. In fact, China has partially taken over. But America is not succeeding to the world power because China wants to take the world power by force. But America is not willing to yield it down to China. But China, literally by their economy, has taken over. Forget the figures you see online. China produces even what America is consuming. The iPhone produced in China, coupled in America. I mean, many electric cars that are far better and cheaper than Tesla. The Americans are not even buying, importing. The only thing America can do is, okay, let's just bring the regulations to streamline it and not allow it to affect our market. But yeah, people know that it's far better. So I'm saying that, imagine if Nigeria can use the same ideology as China is using. Get some farmers, bring them together. Bring about 2,000 farmers together. Give them different sectors to go to into agriculture. You go into rice production, we'll support you. If there's a need for you to go into mechanized rice production, we will help you. Team them up, 20 of that in different states, 20 of this in different states. Let them go into food production. Let us force feed ourselves. We are hungry, right?
Yeah.
There's so much hunger in the land. How many farmers do you have in them? Can you tell me what they produce in this state that you can say is in excess? Okay, cocoa, yes, fine. Do you eat cocoa?
Somehow I consume cocoa.
You don't directly consume cocoa. Is not a direct food you produce. You consume.
So I consume, not eat. So
that's what I'm saying. So it's more like we're not really talking about what do you eat. Okay, do you even consume cocoa every day?
At all.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to. You see, we have daily consumption that we can actually go into.
Yeah.
Arable crops that we can actually go into that can feed us. But people are crying of hunger. Do you know how much a Congo of rice costs currently? I'm saying this should be local production that should be like what goats and chicken are eating on the street. We should have surplus. So when you see those traits from the government, know that yes, Nigeria is ready to work.
Okay, so I mean, in addition to all that you have said, I just want to ask, so should policies be directed towards redressing multiple taxation and high income companies tax? Do you think will have adverse effect on the Nigerian economy?
Surely. The first policy we should talk about is the production policy before taxing the production centers. I think that's the only way forward. You must first improve my life before you get dividends out of it, right?
Yeah.
A parent will first nurture
A child.
raise the child, school the child. At the end of the day, in returns, get benefit from the child.
Yeah.
So, what do you expect the government to do? You want to tax the community. It's not bad. You should get something from the community. It's normal. But have you ever given back to the community? What basically can you say, okay, there was a time they came up with an idea that they will be giving 500,000 to business owners during Buhari regime, I think the first 4 years, people applied for the loan. I'm trying to remember the name of the scheme. People really applied for the loan. It's online actually, but you have to register with NIMSA. I don't know if you remember that program.
Really, exactly.
You have to register with NIMSA. NIMSA is a microfinance bank that you have to register with. So they would help you process the loan. The loan will come through them to your account, and you start repayment after 3 years. Moratorium of 3 years. Then you start paying, I think, about 9% on the loan. There about 500,000. If I tell you the level of scam in it, that it got to a stage that people were paying up to the tune of 50,000 to acquire the loan. Just 500,000. So I'm saying there are basic ways of addressing things that would in return yield. You can't tax people who are not productive. That's my point. People are not productive, and yet you want to tax them. So it's not about the tax reform, it's about the productivity. If you can't, 1 million Nigerian graduates, ask them what they are producing presently or what they are doing presently, they are jobless, and yet we keep producing graduates every year.
I mean, our time is out of hand. I think at this point we'll have to draw the curtain. But I mean, in your last word, your final word, what would you push out there? I mean, you've said a lot though, but more emphasis on this taxation and then implementation and monitoring, because I think that's the part where our government seems to be failing. Those policies are there. We keep hearing of it. But in your last word, what would you emphasize? I mean, when it comes to implementation and then monitoring to ensure that we actually achieve what we are, crying out for?
Okay, let me just phrase it in a basic tense. There were times when we used to write JAMB manually. Let's not say manually.
Paper and pencil, like they say.
Paper and pencil written. But from there they moved to computer based. And ever since then it became seamless. Let the government move to a more digitalized way of assessing the community members. Let us have an actual database of Nigerians that you can go as a public record and search for a name and get the profile. Not necessarily all the secret profiles, but I mean you can get the profiles of an average Nigerian. Let's have a database of Nigerians, the working class, the non-working class, the unemployed, the self-employed, because you can actually get those databases. Let's first digitalize our economy. Let's make everything seamless. From there, you can get direct access to those whom you want them to be productive. And you know the productive sector, the SMEs. Who runs the SMEs? The youths, right?
Yeah.
So you know the productive sectors. So you can have direct access to them without getting to meet Mr. A or Mr. B to help you get them. Then from there, you can ask that, okay, we've improved you. Now you are productive in the space of 3-4 years. Now we want to tax you. I think that's the only way forward.
All right. Thank you so very much for joining us on the show. It was nice having you, and we hope to have you more often.
You're welcome.
All right. So to our audience, we've heard it all, and we trust that this present administration, they've heard our cries, and we trust that they will not just hear and actually speak, but actually do something about it. And until next time, we will be sitting here again. We hope that you always enjoy our show. Right now, we'll be handing over to our Lagos studio. Until next time, I'm Kareen Edet.
Have a wonderful day. Ahead of me, Ezekiel, Ogar.